Hi, everyone. I'm Logan Baldwin, the executive director of Klamath Film. With me, I have Kian Doughty, director of Telltale Heart. It's Kian. Are you a student right now?
Yeah, I'm a college student, film student.
Where are you? Where are you going?
I'm at the New School in New York, specifically a college called Eugene Lang. It's a liberal arts school.
In New York. What are your ties to Oregon then?
Born and raised in Portland. I've spent a long period of time in the Oregon Festival circuit. I'm pretty familiar with, I think Oregon Film Festival is about as much as you can be. I've been to Klamath before. I had a film, Lucky Encounter. My last film before this one also screened at the festival. So yeah, it's Oregon film. You always got to support Oregon film. The film festivals are incredible. I wish I could be back for this one and for some of the ones this film is getting to go to. That's one of the big sacrifices living out here.
Yeah, totally, totally. Well, we wish you were here, really, but I'm glad we've got you in this capacity. Um, so was this a school project, or was this something that you just did with school resources or outside of school? How'd that?
Mhm. So this was I made this film after I had started film school in New York, but I shot it in Portland. So I shot it over winter break. I basically wrote a script. I sent it to my friend Ben Sicilian, and who I have collaborated with in the past, and he agreed to help me be an assistant director because we were kind of run and gun shooting this. We didn't have any permits or anything. We were shooting in pretty busy streets when you see the film. So when I was there, both of the actors in the film are non-actors. They're just people I'm friends with personally that have expressed some interest in, being a part of a project. And yeah, with our only other crew member got COVID, so it was just four people out there. We, did some run and gun shooting in a few locations, and it's the film you see.
Cool. Very well. That's exactly how it goes being a student filmmaker, right? You just
Mm,
get what you can. You've got no budget. You get who you can for no money. You
yeah.
know what I mean? So it really worked out. I'm glad that it all came together and you got to submit. So is this your first year in film school?
This is my second year. I'm going into my second year.
Fantastic. Good deal. Um, how long have you been making films?
I started off acting and co-writing in projects that I had family friends doing, so I had a little bit of a, you know, boost in at least confidence and confidence behind the camera from that. I got to go to a lot of film festivals for a film I was in when I was 12 called Made You Look, Portland film. And a few years later, I directed a film called Unheard on 16 millimeter film. My grandfather, I had star in it, which I was very lucky that he's an incredible actor. He's a theater actor in Minnesota. And just, we were able to work together on a couple projects. And so, yeah, this is like maybe my, I don't know, fifth short film that I would put out in the world and say is like part of my, I want to attach my name to. So I've made a lot of bad stuff, but as far as stuff I'm proud of,
Yeah, trust, I know all about that. I've got way
yeah,
more bad stuff than I've got good stuff.
yeah,
That's true with everything,
absolutely.
you know. So what inspired you to create a modern retelling of Poe's Telltale Heart? How did you
Mhm,
approach adapting this classic story to fit a
mhm.
contemporary setting?
Um, I first kind of stripped it down to its like most simple elements. I think literally just writing them down, the lines that I thought were important to reference directly, ways that I thought I could shift the lines to make more sense, I guess, in to a modern audience. The language, which is done through voiceover in my film, isn't particularly like modern, I guess, but is modernized from the Poe text. And it started, I just read through, all of the Edgar Allan Poe stories. I was familiar with many of them, like that one. And, I kept having a series of nightmares where I was in an alley and somebody was trying to hand me a severed heart, just like, it was like basically went through like sort of the rest of the story. Obviously, there's a whole cast of characters in the film that is not here. But my grandfather is in this as once again as the old man that you see through flashback, and yeah, it was sorry, I'm kind of losing track of the question, but
No, you
hopefully
killed
that
it.
answers it.
Yeah, absolutely, you killed it. That really brought me to one of my other questions. Is I thought the heart prop looked really great. What
Yes.
did you do to make that happen?
Okay. Incredible story. I want to give a huge thank you to my mom because I had ordered an elaborate prop heart that was supposed to pump blood, and I was very excited about it. And then it didn't show up. It was delayed one day in the mail, and I only was able to shoot this film on this one day because of the actors' schedules. They weren't all going to be there, for the rest of the summer. And I asked my mom, I was like, "So what do I do? Do I like try to do something in post? Do I not show it? How do I insinuate it?" And she just said, "Oh, let me see what I can do." And she made that heart out of clay. It's in my mom's living room right now, and we just soaked it in fake blood before shooting.
Yeah, that's
And
great. It looks
I'm
awesome.
I'm very happy with how it came out. It's the practical effect I love, and I love that she got to be a part of it, and did such an amazing job. That's one of the things of the film I'm so proud of.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. So did that other heart, did it come in the mail later and was it like significant
Yeah, it's
the one that you got or
I don't think I think it would have looked like I was using a fake Halloween heart. I wanted to see how I could do it with the to make it like pump, like a heart would or like it does so vividly in the story. But what I think I realized is that if it's working effectively, if the sound and if the image is actually striking to you, you're going to see the heart, but you're more going to be following our protagonist and his reaction to it. And I think in the way we shot it in very quick cutting, I think hopefully it had a similar effect to what I had hoped for a more elaborate heart.
yeah, it was really, really cool. It was really great. That was probably one of the highlights of it. It was just like, oh, that
Thank
looks
you.
awesome. That was sick.
Yeah.
So
Practical effects are always the best to
every,
work with.
every time, I hate that, especially with a lot of these new, huge, big budget studio movies. It's like
Hmm.
there's a scene that takes place, in an open field. Why didn't you just go to an open field? Why would you
Exactly. No, exactly.
in
I mean, especially,
a screen?
yeah, if it's a realistic place, I mean, unless you're James Cameron, don't, stick to real grounded stuff, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So you shot this on 8 millimeter, right?
Yeah, I did.
Um, it really adds a unique texture and atmosphere to
Mm.
the film. What motivated you to choose this medium, and how did it impact the overall aesthetic and tone of your telling of the story?
That wasn't the plan because my last few shorts I've shot digitally, and I have a Black Magic camera that's incredible. It gets great images, and everything was set to shoot with that camera. We had a setup that we normally would have shot that camera with. There were, we had light kits and such, and I was going to record also sound along with it. But I think I was a few weeks before rewatching Taxi Driver, and I was thinking about how that film is so grimy and kind of how it works that way, and I realized that I don't think you can get that grime digitally. And I wanted the film to feel like you're kind of in the gutter or you're kind of, it's just graffiti, kind of like the Warriors, you're just walking through a very rundown state or place. Yeah.
Totally, totally. Well, I think it really added to the overall um, tone. So
Thank you.
it was a cool choice. Absolutely. Um,
Yeah, it's in 16 millimeter too. I've shot on a little bit, but for something like that, you can't really run and gun 16 millimeter. It's much harder in my opinion. You have to switch the film in a bag, and it becomes very complicated very quick.
Absolutely, yeah. So, adapting a well-known story like Telltale Heart can be
Mm.
challenging. How did you ensure that this adaptation felt fresh and relevant while still
Mhm.
honoring that original source material?
Um, I think that I'm definitely not the first person to say this, but I think it comes down to just making something that you would like to see or that is interesting to you or is original to you. Because if I'm engaging in something and I feel like it's played out, I've never adapted anything before, but if it doesn't feel like I made it or it doesn't feel like something that only me and my friends could create, then I don't think it's worth doing. So it's really selfishly just to kind of satisfy my own ideas and images that I guess I see.
Totally. Yeah, I was in a store earlier this week and I heard something come on the radio, and I can't even remember what song it was, but I out loud to my wife, I was like, "Is this a remix of that version?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "It sounds exactly the same. Why would you want to cover a song like that without like changing it significantly? It sounds exactly the same. Maybe it was Africa by Toto. I don't remember. But it's like,
Yeah.
this is exactly Africa by Toto. Why don't you change it? What's the point in re-recording this? You
Mhm.
know? So I think
Well,
you took this and made it your own.
thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. I think it's if you go on IMDb and you look up the Telltale Heart, there's a million versions of it. But I'm also thinking of it in the setting of like if I'm showing this in the classroom, which I've been fortunate enough to do, uh, a lot of people I know aren't necessarily super familiar with Edgar Allan Poe, or maybe they know the symbolism, but it's not immediate, that connection. Whereas I've noticed that my professors that I've shown it for, and a lot of older people put more emphasis on the fact that it's Poe and the fact that it's this very iconic story. And so I think additionally, like a lot of people are maybe not, aren't super up to speed on like every Poe story, and it gets to feel fresh. Some of my favorite reactions of the film have been people who have had didn't even know that it was an adaptation until the credits.
Oh, well, we should have stopped you then at the beginning when you.
No, it's that's okay. That's okay.
Okay, all right. Well,
They're just like, how did you think of that? That's twisted. And I'm like, I didn't exactly.
yeah, I mean, thank you. Take credit for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, the narrator for Telltale Heart is a really complex character filled with paranoia and guilt. How did you approach directing Noah, your main actor, to capture
Mm.
these intense emotions and the character's descent into madness? Because I do know you did say earlier that he has no acting background. So how did that go?
Yeah. Well, Noah he's one of my good friends from Portland that I met through doing music in high school. And I found out that he had done a bunch of theater camps when he was a kid. And he was like into it when he was a kid, and he had kind of dropped out of that sphere in any way. And I think once you do that a little bit, once you begin putting yourself out in that way, I think it can always kind of come back. So I think before we shot anything, I just sat down with him, had him read through the script a bunch. There's a shot of him with a cigarette in his mouth in my basement that I just put in the film because I thought it was weird and cool. And that was from that original read through. And if you look at that frame, you can see him kind of physically trying to get into the character. So it was really great. It made me, confident in my ability to work with people who aren't used to taking direction, and how I think if you can communicate with somebody in other fields, that is often able to cross over, which is really beautiful.
Totally, totally. And I know that it can also be hard sometimes working with a theater actor and translating
Mm,
all of that to film because I've worked with people who it's like, well, this is a really in intimate, quiet moment with a mother and her son. You really got to tone this down a little bit because you're right now you're acting to the people in the back row and they can see you. You're on camera. Your face is 50 feet tall. You don't have to do
yeah.
that. So, did you run into that at all? Was he,
Yeah, it was definitely the takes where when we got later into the takes of doing that, the more wore down I think it sounded. I think it sounded more compelling. And I would, definitely have him not always put emphasis on like the last word of a sentence. I had him switch the words that he would give emphasis to. But I found what usually happens, my grandfather is a theater actor who I have worked with a bunch, and he was very briefly in this. I was doing a film with him a few years ago, and we did this scene where he had to cry, and as he's holding this guitar, and I found that the more we did it, and the more it felt like it felt simple and it felt quiet and it felt internal rather than being broadly external. I found it much more compelling. And so I think it's always about, um, you know, bringing that aspect of it in so that maybe the other aspects can, if in that film, like the heart should feel over the top. I want that to feel over the top. But the parts before it, I don't want to feel over the top. And it's balancing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, one thing that I like to ask everybody are what were some of the challenges that you face during production,
Mm-hmm.
and how did you overcome these challenges? We talked
Mm-hmm.
about the scheduling, and you had only one day to get everything to work. We talked about the heart. What happened during production that like really threw you for a loop, and you had to act quick.
I think, well, I wasn't able to see the footage until we had shot it, and it had come back to me from the studio, Cinelab Studios. I want to give a shout out to them. Great film developing studio out of Boston. Highly recommend them for pretty affordable developing. But when I got it back, there was a lot of shots that we had done that I thought in my head would be very cool. I thought would be sort of centerpieces of the film, and something had gone wrong. Either the lighting was weird, or they were just too dirty, like in the grain quality, or the light wasn't, I didn't expose it properly. It would be things like that, and I think I had to edit around a lot of it. And for me, when I watch it, I see those things all the time. I say, oh, I wish I had an extra second of this shot. I wish I had shot this longer. But also, film is expensive, and we're working with limited materials in a very quick amount of time. So considering, I'm very happy with it. But going back, I definitely would have gotten more coverage, more B-roll, maybe extended a couple things.
Yeah, totally. I think it turned out really great. You're always going to be your own biggest critic, and that's just
Yeah, of course.
I there everybody else who's seeing this for the first time, I promise they didn't see that stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I
I
appreciate that.
I sure didn't, and I've watched it 3 times now.
Oh,
So
thank you, man.
of course.
Thank you.
So do you have any plans for future projects? Are there any other adaptations you're thinking
hmm
about, or something original? What's next for you?
hmm My next film is definitely going to take place in New York, and I want to fully take advantage of the fact that I have this location. I'm currently kind of sketching up something that I know I'm going to have to shoot one scene in Times Square for, which is going to be a nightmare. But I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how it's. You have so many variables when you're shooting a run and gun in New York. There's people everywhere, but really beautiful things can happen. I was working boom on my friend's film once. We were shooting in Chinatown, and there all these people started like coming up to the actors and talking, and it stayed in the film because it felt real. It didn't feel they were real people that didn't even observe the cameras. They were just talking to the actors, and I really want to play with that. And so I'm writing this film about a mime, which, yeah, it sounds weird, but it's like about the process of being a street performer essentially, and the I guess the toll that that can have on a person. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. I just need to get it and swing it a little bit more.
Totally, totally. Well, I can't wait to see it, man. Thank you for talking with me today. Do you have any more final words
Oh, of
before?
course. No, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. It's been great. It was great to have my film Lucky Encounter in here. It's great to have this film. Hopefully, I'll be able to have more films in the future. Uh, you know, Incredible festival. Thank you for all the work you do. And as long as I'm making movies, I will come back to these Oregon festivals. So, thank you again.
Absolutely. Well, we hope to see you in the future, man, and good luck on your mime film. Thank you so
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kian, so much for submitting Telltale Heart to the Klamath Independent. Let me take this from the top. I'm going to edit this.
No, you're good.
Thank you, Kian, for submitting your film to the Klamath Independent Film Festival. Telltale Heart will be available on Eventive for a limited time as part of our online showcase.